Okay. Excuse me. Welcome back to The Adolescence of a Bookworm. Anime Review, episode number 4. We're reviewing episodes 7 and 8 for the series. And with these, I have 6 more to go. So mostly put in these 2 particular episodes. Mine and Lude were basically requested, or invited to have lunch with Brino. And she liked the broth very much at all, and of course they formulate a contract, basically, because the whole thing, of course she makes a negotiation. Lude is like, what is going on here? And what got basically the fact that she might be acting different than a child who was 5 is the word collateral. Now, he was surprised the fact that a 5-year-old would know that word. Well, she could be 6. Yep. So, after chatting for a while, and then of course they formed a contract. Yes, a contract. Which they signed it, and of course they formulated all details, no problem, that basically that it would be her idea, and of course basically we would be developing it, and then they formed the contract, and of course he had to give up basically the recipe for the shampoo, which probably gave it too easily. Perhaps she could have arranged it where she is, despite the fact she doesn't own the recipe anymore, she can still be given the credit for creating this recipe. Yes. So, because that was the main reason when they signed it, was basically the recipe. So, then they signed it, and then they had to, of course, mine was basically very nervous about this. So then you have Bruno where he just pokes his fingerprint it. Lou did, and of course Lou did to mine because basically mine is very nervous about it because she doesn't like blood very much at all. And then right after they leave, basically, then he starts acting more suspicious toward her, which spreads to the next episode. She of course, she does supposed to be in the next episode. And then, throughout this, basically, they, of course, they get the tools to, develop this prototype paper. Which, of course, they have Lude carry the thing because mine is very fragile, so I'm like, okay, if it's too much for him, why not contact his siblings if they're not too busy? So then you just have mine just watching a pot boil with wood in it, and she sees like, oh, what's this thing on the ground? And like, oh crap, throws it. Les Verloon, and basically he explains it's a turline, which of course she's never heard of this thing before, probably because Fantasy World. And then him and his brother and cousin proceed to slice and dice the damn thing, and then proceed to use it to make the paper. And of course make a separate paper too, and then they press it, and then after all the make papers and walls all trying, mine explains exactly what's going on to Lude, because basically that they did discuss basically when they were finished. Well, before this, they basically went to go get some bamboo, get a mallet made, the base, all this other stuff. First go to the craftsman, and then the threadsman, and like one other person. Yeah, and everything's pretty reasonable. She fills out an order, no problem. The guy was like, okay, cool, we're all set here. Yep. And look up, he recommended somebody. This is now the whole thing of like, okay, if you need something, I know somebody basically who can take care of that, probably for a reasonable price, and that is standard business practice. Yes, it's very standard business practice for that to happen. So if all that's done, they make the paper, and it's drying, and then mine explains to Lou what's going on. So basically, she's from another world, kind of, and took over mine's body. Because if she leaves the body, she does explain, if she does, the body be a corpse. And she does explain when she's basically this. It's been a year. By the way, this is episode 8 of the show, and it's been like a full year since she basically became mine. And he got suspicious basically the way he talked and the fact that she made this before. And it seems like basically his suspicions were like, well, not exactly well, basically he was able to understand basically what she was saying, and he doesn't really hate her for it. Basically, they just continue to be friends, and then they of course have the same paper. One of course from the terrible plant, and like, oh, maybe just make more. No, if they do that, it'd be a complete wasteland. Oh yeah, and also the whole thing with the Devourer is that the one way to treat it is with a magical item, which, of course, mine doesn't have access to magical items, but Bruno does. Of course, we also got in these 2 episodes that Bruno is Otto's brother-in-law because Otto's wife is his sister. Standard. So, was there anything else? Well, the whole thing in the thing with the drain, it actually had big nails, which of course they actually made from the previous episode. That's the main reason why with the nails thing and the whole thing with the arrangement. Trying to think, was there anything else? No, I think that's it, because basically covered like a lot of stuff, The original plan was to go ahead and do One Piece. I'm going to do 2 more episodes, and then I'm going to go ahead and watch One Piece, which it's only 1 episode, it shouldn't take very long. Yep. So yes, that's pretty much it, particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Excuse me. So, next up basically is a Comic Corner, and then basically it is on to, well, 2 more episodes of the series, okay? But see you in the next video. Bye.